Hi, my name is Felix Matos Rodríguez and I am the Chancellor of the City University of New York. People who know me call me Felo, and this is my new conversation space on CUNY TV, Café con Felo. Bienvenidos a Café con Felo. Today on Café con Felo, we're exploring an exciting endeavor aimed at strengthening New York City by uniting business, education, and community to better prepare New Yorkers for the jobs of today and tomorrow. I am talking about the New York Jobs CEO Council, a coalition of some of New York's largest employers committed to improving the school-to-jobs pipeline by hiring 100,000 low-income New Yorkers, including 25,000 of our own CUNY students by 2030. Joining me is Kiersten Barnet, Executive Director of the Jobs CEO Council. Kiersten is a recognized authority on the future of work and diversity with a remarkable background that includes helping public companies diversify their workforce through Bloomberg's data reporter tools. She is also the co-founder of the US 30% Club, a campaign to diversify our boardrooms. On today's show, we'll delve into how the Jobs CEO Council is creating sustainable career pathways for CUNY students through entry-level jobs, apprenticeships, and work-based learning opportunities, as well as other innovative initiatives aimed at uplifting low-income communities in our city. The first question on the show, Kiersten, is, are you a coffee drinker? And if you are, how do you take your coffee?
I'm actually not a coffee drinker. Neither is my husband. And I will say we had guests in town this weekend, and I think they were dying in the morning. They said, who doesn't own a coffee machine? So we're going to have to get one.
Luckily in New York, easy to sort of run around.
Yes, exactly. Set them down to the corner. Yeah.
Well, great to have you here in the show. Let's begin with some basics for our audience. Can you give us a sense of what the Jobs Council does and actually how the idea originated?
Yes. So the Jobs Council, we like to say that our job is to make it easier for every New Yorker to make it. The city is home to some of the world's largest employers and also to a huge pool of talent, many of whom are CUNY students.
Thank you.
But historically, employers haven't been hiring the talent from the backyard that they could be. And also many New Yorkers, particularly from underserved communities, they either don't have visibility or access to many of these opportunities. So that's the mission of our organization, is to make it easier for everyone to make it. How do we do that? We do that in kind of three key ways. One is we unite the ecosystem. So we are an intermediary organization, which means that we build bridges across the city, across education, business, local government, community-based organizations, to ensure that New Yorkers are getting skills, competencies, and access to those tangible job outcomes that they need. Second, we scale proof points, and we do that by working with existing systems like CUNY to build public-private partnerships to take those things that are working and make them bigger. I often say that the city is program-rich but system-poor. There's so many amazing things happening out there, so how do you put that all together into a system that's easy to navigate? And third, where there are gaps, we incubate solutions, but we always do that, again, within existing systems and with a long-term scale and sustainability in mind, rather than things that are long-term going to be dependent on philanthropic funding or in a silo outside of existing systems.
And this is, you've been now 2 years in the role?
2 years, yes.
So
yes.
You've been an incredible partner. Let's talk about some of the specific programs to give people a flavor of the concrete work of the council. What have been your favorite 2-3 programs or initiatives that the council has put together?
First, I should add that everything we do is market-driven. It starts with the employers, and we work backwards on the things that they're looking for in jobs of the future, and what are the skills and competencies that New Yorkers are going to need to get on those pathways. We are lucky to be founded and funded by 29 CEOs. They are all business leaders of some of the largest organizations in the city, and if not the world. These are the CEOs of JP Morgan, Bank of America, Accenture, Google, Amazon. It's a dream group of superpower CEOs that are helping power this. So we're lucky to be able to work with them to provide New Yorkers with those skills and competencies and also with the pathways. So you asked of a few examples. So one major way we do that is through curriculum, and through curriculum enhancement or providing additional training that can give students an edge and a boost in that job search. An example is last summer we provided 4,000 students with access to Google Career Certificates, which are something employers really valuable when hiring for technical roles, so that they could work on those skills in addition to their coursework. Another example is Amazon is working with some of the community colleges to enhance their cloud curriculum that students are getting in the classroom. So it's really important to us that what students are learning in the classroom is also going to be mapped to the skills that employers are demanding on the other side.
And in doing that, too, you're also navigating some of the other soft skills. You're also giving a student a sense of what the culture in those companies are, which is indispensable to be able to succeed. You're building their confidence, right, by getting all these micro-credentials or these certificates. They're going to feel a lot more empowered when they go into a job interview or into any kind of professional endeavor. So it's, you know, it's very organic and wholesome. One of the great things that I know you've been doing is having some of them visit our campuses and talk to our students, and you'll be also having job fairs and other things that are very much active in our campus. Can you talk a little bit about those programs?
Yes, that's been a really fun series to do. So we started the CEO Speaker Series for a couple of reasons. One, to bring the CEOs that, again, are funding and founding this organization to the campus to meet the students and the next generation of talent in their companies. And two, because we want the students that, again, are in their backyard of these big buildings, but sometimes a campus and a skyscraper in Midtown feels so far away. And so having them come to your turf to see the school, but also so the students can see how committed these companies are to hiring this talent is really important. I will say our companies love CUNY talent, so this is also selfishly a great recruitment opportunity for them. And there's a few reasons for that. One, they're obviously getting a great education. You all have every degree and certification program under the sun. But beyond that, and the hard skills, they're really focused on the skills your students have honed outside of the classroom. And this is where I think CUNY talent really has a leg up on some other graduating talent. So, for example, every CUNY student I have met either works full-time or part-time in addition to going to school. So that shows time management, responsibility. They've had a boss. They may have been a boss. And these are all really applicable skills to any job. You're one of the most linguistically diverse campuses in the nation, and I think there's 175 languages spoken here. Many of your students speak more than one. All of our companies are either global companies with a global customer base who need that skill, or they're local companies like hospitals where, again, their customer base, their patients, they also speak those 175 languages. So this is a skill they value in the talent that they hire. So it's been a fun series to do, and it's also been a great way to get our CEOs in front of students and our students' jobs.
And one of the things I like, and I was able to join Jamie when he went to Queens College, talk to the students. First, they're getting great advice and feedback from individuals who've been highly, highly accomplished. And that's when you're a young student trying to figure out what the next step is invaluable. But also the personal stories.
Yes.
I think the students think of CEOs as this sort of larger-than-life thing.
Absolutely.
And then there's a personal story. There's something in the background that the student can connect and see, oh, that person did it that way. I have an opportunity too. So I found them to be equally inspirational for the students. And I mean, to the one I've been, and the feedback from the presidents is that this is like rock stars visiting the campuses. So, thank you for doing that, and also for bringing some of the other professionals that have been working with the faculty on curriculum and building the apprenticeships, which I think has been an incredible step. And I know that you have a partnership also with the New York City Public Schools with that. So it's it's the entire ecosystem, and I want to commend you for the work with faculty. Right, which are indispensable in being able to not just modify curriculum, but they're the ones teaching, they're making their referrals. Can you talk about your work with the career fellows and faculty and the curriculum building too?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I've learned the more work I've done with CUNY is the faculty are the lifeblood of your university. They also serve far more than, or they wear more than one hat than just teaching. And they're also the advisors. They're the people, trusted people that students listen to. So they're so important as ambassadors for us in this work. We started our faculty fellowship program a few years ago, where essentially we take faculty and also advisors and people from career services offices, anyone who's really touching students in this area. And they do a 3 weeks program in the summer that's all around implementing work-based learning into the curriculum and how to take some of that real life work and bring it into the classroom for students to get that experience. But also we bring them around to several of our companies. And I've had the pleasure of joining many of these, and it's great to see because you have the faculty sitting there in JP Morgan and they're hearing from all the recruiters for the internship programs. One, just about the number of opportunities that are there. You know, people think JP Morgan, they think finance. There's also tech, there's HR, there's events, everything under the sun. You see a hospital, you think doctors and nurses. There's also tons of other clinical roles, plus non-clinical roles. They also need finance and tech. And so it's great for the faculty to see the breadth of opportunities, but also I can remember being at one and a faculty member said, well, this is great. I love that you have so many internship opportunities, but how many of these are paid? And I thought, oh my gosh, our companies, they don't have any unpaid internships. They are paid, and they are paid very well. Many also have additional benefits, housing, other things. And so I thought the disconnect there, it is so important for us to make sure that faculty are armed with the right information so that if a student comes and says, hey, I got this internship, but I'm nervous to apply for an internship because I need to keep my job, they can say this is also a job, and it will also cover your bills.
No, I mean, I think they become, like I said, great ambassadors of the programs. I think also, they have mentioned to us in feedback that, I was hired here to teach computer science, to teach history, to teach anthropology. I'm not up to date with some of the things that students need. So the more tools I can get to be effective in that role, because at the end, they also care about the students. And we've had great feedback from that work. And they become also great ambassadors in a culture that, we're working on in the system that has that campus thinking about how do we help the students succeed in their career goals from day one, right?
Yes.
And that means not just people in career services, it means faculty, everybody on the campuses, and the faculty are really, really indispensable. And like you say, the students, even advisors and other student affairs staff, they spend the most time interfacing with the faculty. So thank you for that engagement, which I think has been really, really productive, and I gotten great feedback from the faculty. I wanted to pivot a second because one of the good things about the show is that I get to talk to folks that I have a lot of respect for their trajectory, for the work they've done. And now you have this role in the council, which is entirely consistent with work that you've been doing before. But I would like to, particularly for the students who are listening, and maybe for the female students who are listening, right? How do you get to be in that seat that you're in today in terms of your own professional trajectory? And I would love if you can also weave in a little bit of the key work that you've done, diversifying C-suites and boardrooms.
Sure. So, personal history. I grew up in a small town in Rhode Island. I went to public high school. I then went to a private high school private college in Virginia. Education was incredibly important in my family, also though not as traditional. My dad got his college degree when he was 30. I was there, as a young child at his graduation. My mom had gotten hers earlier, but went back to grad school when she was 58 to get her master's, which I was so proud of her. And she's sitting there in the classroom trying to learn PowerPoint next to 20-year-olds, and she graduated with honors, which she's the only one in our family, I can say, that has a master's or honors next to her degree. And so after that small college in Virginia, I moved to New York City. And I will just say here, back to the CEO Speaker Series, I also had never seen a CEO or really a business executive in the same sense. I was a finance major. I was interested in that in the classroom, but didn't know what that looked like in the workplace. And I can remember a woman who ran investment banking at JP Morgan at the time came and spoke to a group of us that were in a finance club. And for me, it was the first time I'd seen a woman in a senior leadership position. My mom didn't work growing up. She does now. But so that was really helpful. And then also to just learn about what does that work look like? What is it? And it was after that I said, I need to move to New York. This just sounds like an amazing place and I want to work for a big company. But so I do think those can be so incredibly important. And also throughout my career, I have found that you look at role models and it's important to see that human side, that these are people too. They're not superhuman. They also get tired. They also have families. And so hearing those stories that you don't always read in the newspaper when you're reading about a CEO is another benefit of the speaker series and has been helpful for me in my career.
So banking and then you moved and then you had this leadership role really in transforming organizations, right?
Yeah, so I will say, this is also just a bit of advice to students.
Okay.
The first job I took was not the right job, but it got me to New York, so that was the important. you should love what you do every day. And I think not every day is going to be great, particularly in your early job, but you do have to go with your gut of, is this something that I really want to invest in as a career? I then looked for a second job, and I remember I interviewed to be an assistant at Bloomberg. And my boyfriend at the time, spoiler alert, not my husband, said, I can't believe you're going to take your college degree and be an assistant. And I remember walking into Bloomberg for the interview, and the place just felt buzzing and it full of opportunity. And I thought, if I do a good job in this, there are so many other jobs here.
This is my entryway.
This is my entryway. I just need a foot in the door.
Yeah.
I was at Bloomberg for 15 years. When I left Bloomberg, I was reporting to our chairman. I mean, it was a great run, and I worked hard and moved up. So I think that that's also an important lesson of go with opportunity, and also to getting your foot in the door at a great organization is a great first step for anyone in their career.
I just want to also make sure that for the audience, right, that even though there's been great diversity in terms of particularly gender and CEO roles and board directors, there's still sizable gaps, right? And
Yes.
there's still a lot of work to be done. So I want to make sure that and you've been instrumental in making sure that boards of directors live up to their commitment to diversity and also what is best for the shareholders, which is have the most diverse talent in that boardroom.
Exactly. I mean, I'm a big believer in the business case for diversity. Yes, also a great thing to do, but really there's so much data out there, and this is what I was very interested in at Bloomberg, that show that diverse teams, diverse boardrooms make better decisions. Diverse boardrooms are smarter about risk. And so they often say that, at Enron, if there had been more of a diverse boardroom, maybe that wouldn't have happened. But taking a whole bunch of people that have the exact same experience and background is never going to produce the most competitive outcome. So at Bloomberg, we are a data company at heart. And so I also found it very interesting to take a data-driven approach to be able to fortify that business case for diversity, if you will. One of the things that I'm most proud of is our team built a reporting framework for companies to report on human capital metrics. So around race in their U.S. workforces, we couldn't measure that globally, around gender globally, around their policies, what are they doing for parental leave, both for primary and secondary caregivers? How are they investing in the communities in which they operate? All of this stuff wasn't stuff that had a tangible, quantitative value to it until we built this framework, but it was something that investors were increasingly realizing were important to that bottom line, and that companies that do invest in their people make better decisions, have more innovative outcomes, and are more competitive. And so figuring out a way that we could build that framework so that public companies could report that data, both to give that to shareholders and to investors, but also to help hold themselves accountable. If you don't have data, you're really just guessing at progress or lack of. Even internally at Bloomberg, I helped build our first reporting framework around diversity, and this is now many, many years ago. And we found when we did that, the most important first step was just collecting the data, arming our managers with it, because otherwise you're also guessing at what the pain points are. Yep. And so, for example, you might say, I think we're losing women in this department because they have to travel and they probably all have children. Well, that could be true, but until you see the data, you might say, actually, they're leaving before they're even at the travel level. So I think having strong data can really help you identify pain points, build solutions, and then hold yourself and others accountable for that progress. And the gender equality index that we built really helped, again, fortify that business case. It showed that companies that have more diverse workforces, that are investing in their people and their talent, do have better outcomes. They perform better financially. They get shareholders better returns. Not surprising, by the way, but something that really hadn't been proven to that extent before. And I'm really happy that now that is something that shareholders are looking for. And people understand. And that puts the pressure on companies. Again, back to it's the right thing to do, but it also puts the pressure on companies that if you want to stay in business, if you want to attract capital, these are the things that you need to be paying attention to. And that accountability is great to see.
Well, thank you for that. And I'm sure that in our next segment where we get some questions from students, I think some of these things are going to come up again, so we can talk more about that.
Can I add one more thing?
Yes.
You also mentioned the 30% Club earlier. I will say that the connection to that job and my current role, That was a group of CEOs that were committed to diversifying boardrooms. And that was my first experience seeing really the power of business leaders, what they can do as a collective versus independently. When they are committed to a mission collectively, that voice is so loud that really makes a difference. And so not only did they diversify their own boardrooms, but it has a trickle-down effect.
Yep.
Smaller companies are looking to bigger companies. And I've taken that lesson, and in this current job, we also hope that will have the same effect on mid and smaller employers in the city, seeing large employers valuing local talent, hiring local talent on CUNY campuses, recruiting your students. We hope that will also inspire other employers to do the same.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So that's perfect timing for us to take a quick break. So when we come back, we'll be answering some questions from students from Borough of Manhattan Community College, or BMCC, which recently ranked high on the list of two-year colleges nationwide for successfully lifting low-income students into the middle class. We're also excited to be airing this year CEO Speaker Series that we talked about here before, right here on CUNY TV, weekends at 6 p.m. So check it out.
They say if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. Because New Yorkers don't just keep the pace, we set it. We have grit. We're determined to succeed and persevere in the face of setbacks. Yet too many New Yorkers aren't given the chance to make it. Too many get left behind. Because having the skills and drive to make it isn't enough. Here, your identity shapes your network, and your network shapes your opportunities. But we're committed to changing that. We're breaking down barriers in our own backyard, supporting students who possess all the tools for success, but lack the stage to shine. We're providing on-ramps to strong careers and championing local talent. We're industry leaders who know our strength is our people. They make this city bigger, brighter, and more extraordinary. Together, we're an engine that's transforming New York City, building a workforce that reflects the rich diversity across the 5 boroughs. Join us as we change lives and build a New York where everyone has the chance to make it.
Welcome back. You're watching Café con Felo. My guest today is the Executive Director of the New York Jobs CEO Council, Kiersten Barnet, whose coalition helps schools, colleges, and companies create curriculum and training programs to place graduating students into high-paying jobs with a focus on New Yorkers from low-income communities and from our own City University of New York. During this segment of the show, we invite questions from our CUNY community. And the first question is from Sue, who's a student who benefited from the Jobs Council partnership. She recently got an apprenticeship at JP Chase. So the question from Sue.
Hi everyone, my name is Sue Almonte and I had a great experience at my apprenticeship. Now, what advice would you give to young women who are looking to climb the corporate ladder to leadership positions in a big company like JP Chase?
Great question. Well, Sue, I'm glad she had a great experience at JP Chase.
Yes.
Sounds like she's well on her way. I get that question a lot, and I will say the advice I give right now today is really gender neutral, but I do think it's especially important for women, needing any extra boost. Put in the FaceTime. And I say that because one of the biggest things that has an impact on anyone's career is sponsors. People often confuse sponsors and mentors. What is that? A mentor gives you advice. A sponsor is the person who really believes in your abilities and thinks you'll also make them look good. They're the person when you're not in the room, they say, I want Kiersten on that project and I know she can do it. And they'll vouch for you when you need someone to take a risk on you. Those are how you get those next opportunities. Now, the way you cultivate sponsors, it's not like mentors. You can't just say, hey, Felo, will you be my sponsor? You have to know each other. You have to have worked together. And I do think that nowadays with hybrid environments, it's never been easier to be behind a screen, but it's really hard for opportunity to spot you behind a screen. And I'll just tell a quick story from my own career. I was in London once for a week with Bloomberg. I was in my late 20s. It was Friday. My boss had already gone home. And I remember sitting at the hotel thinking, maybe I'll just work from here until my flight. And I ended up going into the office, putting on the dress. And that day, our head of public affairs also happened to be in the London office, Kevin Sheeky. And I remember he got up to go to a meeting and he turned around and it's the executive floor at Bloomberg in London and it's pretty empty on a Friday afternoon. And he said, "Hey, Kiersten, want to meet the mayor?" And he brought me to a meeting with Boris Johnson, who mayor, future prime minister of England. He was all with his hair exactly how you would picture Boris Johnson, which was great. I was so excited. But I can tell you that if I hadn't been in the office, I wouldn't have known the opportunity I missed. I would have still done my job. I would have gone home feeling successful. But I also would not have the next year been front row at the London Olympics with Kevin Sheeky having a beer. And so I think that FaceTime piece in developing and cultivating sponsors is really important to people in their careers, especially when they're young.
Well, that's great advice. Thank you. So the second question comes from Sharon, who is the director of the BMCC Internships and Experiential Learning Office, which oversees the Jobs Council programs at BMCC. So Sharon?
Hi, I'm Sharon Reed, Director of Internships and Experiential Learning at Borough of Manhattan Community College. So many of our community college students work concurrently while attending school to support themselves. And we have these wonderful apprenticeship opportunities where we want them to apply. Oftentimes, they're hesitant and they're risk adverse because they don't want to give up a steady, sure job that they have. What advice would you have for them to convince them to take this risk, to apply for something where they may even get hired upon graduation?
That is such a great point. I'm glad she asked that. And she's referring to some apprenticeships we have that are embedded in applied associate's degrees.
Yep.
And they are 12 weeks. They are the second semester of your second year. They are paid. They are credit bearing. They're paid well. And they not only can turn into a job, as Sharon said, or might turn into a job. We've seen that the majority of the time they do turn into a job. Something like 70, 80%.
Which is the idea of the applied associates too.
Which is,
you don't need to transfer. You
exactly.
can go immediately
you
to
could
the workforce.
Go into the workforce. And by the way, if you still want to get a four-year degree, those companies usually will pay for it.
Yep.
So they're incredible pathways. Now, we do hear this a lot, both for the apprenticeship program, but also, as I mentioned earlier, for internships. And the answer is really the same. One is, without these pathways, without the internship, which is the try before you buy that companies use to try out their talent, as is this apprenticeship, it's very unlikely that you're going to get the job because there are very few spots left. Most companies fill their entry-level hires with their intern pool from the previous summer or through programs like this. So you need to be in that pool. In that sense, I say it's worth the risk. The second thing is it may not be as big of a risk as you think, I mean, depending on the job, but again, these all pay well. And so in some cases, probably pay better than your current job, and that might provide you a buffer on the other side of after a summer internship or after a program like this. If you didn't get the job, at least you've got a great thing on your resume, and you probably still have another month or two covered by the extra money that you've made during that experience.
And one of the things that I've also seen is that often the employer where you are would actually hire you back if you came back because you're going to be a better employee than you were before having been to the internship. So sometimes people feel that that's going to burn that bridge. And actually what it does, it makes you even more attractive to that employer. Or sometimes there are employers that are somewhat supportive of the student and will be happy to give them the break because they know that that's the break that they need.
That's a great point.
But somebody needs to sit down with the student and tell them that and reassure them, and that's some of the things that we're working together to do. So thank you for that great advice. Thank you for being a great partner and for all you do for students and for the city. And a big thank you to our audience for tuning in. And remember that you can catch Café con Felo every weekend on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. on CUNY TV. We look forward to bringing you more enlightening discussions and impactful stories and wonderful guests such as Kiersten Barnet. Thank you for being in the show.
Thank you for having me and for your partnership.
Thank you, and saludos.